Hi everyone, I'd like to share with you this new banjo that I just finished restoring. But before I do, I'm going to play you a tune so you can hear what it sounds like. Let's hear some Buffalo Gals. Well, that's a little taste. Let me take this little pick off and I'm going to tell you all about this here banjo. This is a Craigslist find. I found this on Craigslist in early April, the very height of the outbreak here in Minneapolis. I agreed to make a transaction. I threw the money at this man and he left the banjo on the porch, and then I sanitized and sterilized it. The banjo, as I got it from this man, was in pretty rough shape. It had been hanging on his wall since around 1972, 73. He has forgotten. He bought it at an estate sale, and at that time it already had a busted head, and it had a number of kind of janky, clumsy restorations that had already started to fall away, and I'll talk about those in a minute. On the busted head, there was some very old-fashioned writing, and it looked like the banjo had a bit of age. So the man bought it as a primitive, just to hang on his wall and never to play, and it stayed on his wall in its broken form for almost 50 years until I got it. So since I got this banjo, with the help of Bob Flesher down in Florida and with the help of folks at the Banjo Hangout, I've been thinking about what it could be, what its journey might have been until it got to me, and I'll talk all about it. So let's take a look, starting at this neck, which is the most impressive part of this banjo. So I'll just zoom in right here. You can take a look. This beautifully done headstock, very well carved by hand, out of bird's eye maple. The whole neck is made out of bird's eye maple with these inlays. Oh, I should turn it this way so you can see a little better. And then I'm going to flip it over. It connects to this dowel, which goes all the way through out there to the end. And if you're looking carefully, you can probably see that this neck has seen some tsuras. It's seen some troubles in its day. The neck itself, the headstock design, according to Bob Flesher and according to some internet research that I've seen, suggests that this was perhaps inspired by banjos from the New York School. The New York School is a group of minstrel-era instruments that came up around 1870s, late 1870s, early 1880s, and these elaborate headstocks are associated with these banjos that largely came out of the New York area. They were very influential. This headstock design and certain other elements of the construction, like the way the neck goes directly into the body at this upper point. These are characteristic of the New York School, and they inspired banjo makers, especially in England, but also in other parts of the country. I'd be surprised if a London-made banjo found its way to Minnesota, which, well, so the head had an owner's name from the Minneapolis area. So it would be surprising, but not completely impossible for a London-made banjo to find its way here. But in any case, I think that this banjo was, at least the neck, was inspired by this New York School of banjos. It wasn't made by a famous maker. It was probably made at home. And you can see that it's done pretty well. Look at this carving here for the 5th fret. That's pretty cool. It's done pretty well, but it's not a professional job exactly. But the wood is nice. It's very old, and it's very beautiful. When I received the banjo, it had seen some modification, some later modifications. you see these, now they're flush frets, but when I got the banjo, there were some very crudely installed frets, many of which were falling out. And it's clear that somebody took a saw up to the neck at some point and put in these frets. They did a not so great job with it, and they put in these frets. And also an interesting thing that they did is they drilled another hole there. So originally the banjo had a tuning peg coming in from the back, which was changed to a tuning peg that came in from the side. There was a little button here, it might have been made of ivory. I drilled out a hole there and I made another button, but actually in its present formation, it's this way. You don't need a button there because when the peg comes in from the back, it holds up by itself. So what else? Oh, the inlays might be original. They're okay. This trapezoid is kind of cute. My son really liked it and told me I couldn't replace it. I replaced this triangle on the bottom with some ebony, the same wood that I used to do the flush frets. I also made this ebony nut, and I put in these rosewood pegs. This banjo also was the recipient of a rather unkind cut here at the heel. There's typically on these early banjos a hole here between the fretboard and the bottom of the heel, and it seems that the same person that had attempted to modify the neck had gone at it with either a hand drill or with an electric drill, and they did a bad job. So what I did is I just squared it off, made it look a little better, and it doesn't look terrible now. It doesn't look great, but it doesn't look terrible. The dowel runs through. I didn't refinish that. It goes to the end where the same person also cut it off to put a different kind of tailpiece. This rim is also interesting. It's a single lapped wooden rim that I sanded down and put a new finish on. It looks pretty good. And these rims, or rims like these, are common to banjos from the 1880s and 1890s at the earliest. It might be the case that this neck is a little earlier, and this rim was later paired with it. When it came to me, there were later tuners, there were later hooks here, bracket hooks, and they had this rectangular pattern. But if you look carefully here, there were originally only 8 brackets on the neck, and they had round shoes. So when restoring the banjo, I asked Bob Flesher to send me some round shoes, which I then placed on this banjo. And instead of having 16 of these hooks, I went back down to the original 8, and I filled in those extra holes with a dowel and then stained them so that they don't look terrible. So this was probably the original way that it was set up, with just 8 hooks holding down the skin head. The head, as I mentioned, was busted. It was gone. So I mounted a new head that I got from Jeff Menzies, a really nice head, goat skin head. And this was a real pain because the hoop here has stretched out of round. It's not a perfect circle at all. In fact, it's an oval. It's a pretty gnarly oval at that. And the rim here, this hoop, only fits on in a very specific way. So a lot of trial and error and mistakes were made before I was able to secure the head to the flesh hoop and then to tighten it down on the rim and install it as you see now. The banjo's in really good shape. It is a beautiful old object. And I'm so very happy that I was able to restore it to playability after being hung on a wall so unkindly for 50 years. So yeah, that's it. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it in the comments. If you have ideas about where it might be from, how old it might be, I'm happy to hear it and to talk about it. Let's put it down a little so you can hear. Oh, I'm not using the pick right now. The thimble. So anyway, let's do some Arkansas Traveler. Thanks very much.